So what character class are you going to play? That's what we're going to explore in this D&D vlog, looking to answer the question, the character, your character as an avatar on the table, being invested in your character so that with the Dungeon Master, with the other players, you are creating this world together, being excited for your character, not just when you level up, but in every single moment, every single roll of the die, every single interaction with NPCs and other players. The last thing that we want to do is find ourselves playing D&D with a character that we're not enthusiastic with. That's why often, as a Dungeon Master, as much as possible, I like to have Session Zero. And I talked about Session Zero, pushing this up to the archive here on my channel, but essentially just to kind of framework this question, sitting down before the very first adventure and sharing with the players, this is the world. This is the campaign. We're playing Forgotten Realms. This would be common knowledge that any character, any class would have. In terms of the adventure itself, this is what I'm thinking about running. Maybe we're going to start at level 1 and we're going to end up at level 8. Then from there, we'll see where we go. Or maybe we're going to go from level 1 all the way to 20. Or maybe we're going to jump in at level 5. You don't always have to start D&D at first level, although I think in terms of new characters and new campaigns, most Dungeon Masters will do that for a variety of reasons. But this way, as a player, you can make an informed decision of what you want to play. Often I'll play a monk in Dungeons & Dragons, and a monk is really interesting in that, yes, they have a lot of unique abilities, but they tend to need a couple of levels behind them before they can generate enough ki to be able to effectively use those. And the mid to higher levels are where most of the unlocks are. Now, that's not to say I don't enjoy playing a monk levels 1 to 4, but it's a different type of character. So if I was playing in a campaign, if we were Session 0 and this adventure is going to take us from levels 1 to 3, well, I can make that decision. Likewise, if you're playing a mage or an arcane class and it's a high magic world, that's great. If it's a low magic and there's a scarcity to magic, maybe that'll influence your decision on what character to play. So getting an idea of what you want to play. Now, the next layer of that, of course, is as we play Dungeons & Dragons, for a variety of reasons, player personality, interaction with your friends, we tend to gravitate towards the same character classes. I usually play a magic user or a wizard, a sorcerer, a monk. That's not to say I won't play a fighter or a rogue or a thief, throwing out some different character classes there from the various editions of D&D that I enjoy playing. But I tend to gravitate towards these character classes. If we're playing in a campaign and it's going to be a lengthy campaign, this is really kind of the first decision. Do you want to play your usual favorites, or do you want to explore a different character class? Now, the challenge in that, of course, is if it's a character class that you don't regularly play, or maybe it's not your favorite. I'm looking for the correct words. I don't want to say you're stuck with that character, but you're stuck with that character. An example, the Keep on the Borderlands, revisiting that for 5th edition. This is that classic D&D Red Box adventure. No spoilers, but we were jumping into the campaign. We've been playing about more or less every week for a little over a year, maybe a year and 2 or 3 months at this point, having a fantastic, fantastic time as a player. When we started the game, the campaign, we started at level 1, and to pay respect to D&D Red Box and kind of the challenge rating of old school D&D, you rolled your stats and that's what you got. No point buy, no automatic 18s, no heroic stats. There you go. Not even switching stats around. So I was immediately open to playing any character class that the stats kind of favored. And it worked out to play a druid. Now, I say a druid because I rarely play a druid. This was a chance to say, hey, I could be a druid, or kind of not really, I didn't even have really the stats for a mage. It was primarily wisdom-based. So looking at that, maybe a paladin. I don't know if I had the charisma, but really a druid was the ultimate character that I could play. Other character classes would be not as powerful. That's not to say it wouldn't be possible, but this was a chance to play a druid. I had never played a druid before. I was open to it, played through it, had a lot of fun, still really enjoying the character class, but from being open to playing that, I could see, not regularly playing a druid, if I was committing to playing this campaign for a year or 2 years, well, that's a long time. So often what we'll see is if it's a really long campaign or there's no definitive end, that's the first question. Do you want to play an experimental character? Do you want to play a character that you haven't played? What if you kind of get stuck playing that character and it doesn't quite develop in the way that you'd like? You could retire the character, certainly, but there's always time invested in the story and the campaign and the fellow players. As a player, I'm not a big fan of necessarily doing that. And certainly I don't want to get my character killed because the party, we're trying to play that out and see where the adventure is going to go. And that's kind of antithesis to D&D and goes against the character. Now, if we were playing a game where we're coming in at level 5 and it's go to level 7, or we're going to play 2 or 3 levels, a shorter D&D adventure, or maybe we're just going to play one module, well, I think that's the chance to play something a little bit more experimental, but ultimately to challenge you. Now, the final layer in building this question checklist to help you navigate the type of character that you want to play, playing your favorite type of character, but doing something a little bit different. What about that? Bringing the knowledge that you have of the character class and combining it with something a little different to create a different playstyle and kind of create a unique experience for you. Examples, we're going to look at a fighter and we're going to look at a sorcerer. And equally, it could work with any arcane class or a wizard. Playing a fighter, sword and board, primary weapons, get up there and fight. What about a dedicated ranged fighter? Now, not necessarily a ranger, but a fighter that utilizes a heavy crossbow, a fighter with feats and focus on ranged combat, heavy armor, ranged combat. You could build out something pretty neat, pretty different, pretty interesting beyond a ranger class, different than a ranger class. So even with something within a fighter, there are different ways to explore a fighter. Likewise, with a sorcerer, I've played this sometimes. What about an influence sorcerer? Now, the sorcerer, of course, expending the points to cast multiple spells, primarily offensive spells, magic missile, fireball, lightning bolts, kind of the D&D classics. What about just charm and dominate spells? What about illusion spells? What about building a character class that in combat for encounters is going to try and magically dominate, and outside of that is going to be able to increase and buff and create illusions and interact with skill checks and help the party on that perspective? Usually that's kind of the domain of the rogue in terms of gathering info and boosting stuff. Playing a sorcerer in such a way and focusing on one area still brings the raw talent of the sorcerer to the game. And if you regularly play them, bringing your proficiency, but at the same time, it offers something for you as a player. Completely different. So that's another consideration where jumping in with your favorite character class, but doing something a little bit different within that. But ultimately, whether you're going back to session 0 or just you've got the dice, you're getting ready to roll it out, having some sort of checklist to navigate and ask yourself, what type of character do you want to play? So this way, literally the avatar of it on the table fully represents that as you.